This is the C-17 Globemaster 3, and that thing, sliding off the back, is a Humvee. In the next 8 seconds, a cluster of parachutes has to open. If they don't, that Humvee just turned into a missile on its own troops. But here's what makes this even more insane. The US military does this regularly with multiple vehicles from the same aircraft on the same pass. And the whole system comes down to a 2-second window that no one can control once it starts. The C-17 Globemaster 3 is the largest airdrop-capable aircraft in the US Air Force inventory, and almost everything about it was designed around one problem: getting heavy things out of a moving plane without hurting anyone. Start with the cargo hold, 88 feet long, 18 feet wide, 12 feet tall. You could park a Greyhound bus in this thing and still have room to walk around it. But the reason it's that size isn't comfort. 3 Humvees rigged on airdrop platforms eat nearly every inch of that floor. Tighter and you can't space the load safely. Shorter and you lose a vehicle. The floor runs on a dual rail system. One side has rollers for palletized cargo, and the other panels flip to create a flat surface for vehicles. When it's time to drop, those rails become a launch track. The platform locks into the rails, and when the extraction chute fires, the whole assembly rides them like a sled on a bobsled run, straight out the back. If those rails jam or misalign, the load stalls on the ramp. 10,000 pounds of Humvee stuck half in and half out of a moving aircraft at 150 knots. Above the wings, 4 Pratt & Whitney F-117 turbofans, each producing approximately 40,440 pounds of thrust. That's over 160,000 pounds of combined thrust, enough to lift a maximum takeoff weight of 585,000 pounds, nearly 300 tons. That kind of power isn't about speed, it's about control. When 10,000 pounds exits the back of the aircraft in under 4 seconds, the center of gravity lurches forward. The nose wants to dip. The pilots fight it. The fly-by-wire system compensates, and the engines have to maintain enough authority to keep the aircraft stable while the weight disappears behind it. Drop 3 Humvees in sequence, and the C-17 sheds 30,000 pounds in under a minute. Every release is a controlled crisis. The rear of the aircraft opens with a hydraulically operated ramp and door system. In flight, at altitude, at speed. When that ramp comes down at 1,000 feet, there's nothing between the cargo floor and the ground but open air. And standing next to that open air are the loadmasters, typically 2 for an airdrop mission, tethered to the aircraft by safety harnesses because their workspace just became the edge of a cliff doing 150 knots. These are the people who verify rigging, position the loads, operate the ramp, and ultimately send 10,000 pounds of military vehicle into open sky. The pilots fly the aircraft, the loadmasters run the drop, and when the ramp opens and the wind hits, they're the last eyes on every strap, every chain, and every connection before physics takes over. For airdrop operations, the sequential heavy drop limit is 110,000 pounds. That's enough for 3 fully rigged Humvees in a single pass, which means every pound of rigging, chain, and platform board counts against that ceiling. Go over it, and someone's leaving a vehicle behind. 3 vehicles, 1 aircraft, 1 run over the drop zone, and everything that happens next depends on what the riggers did on the ground. Here's the thing most people don't realize. You don't just strap a Humvee to a floor and shove it out the back. There's one thing standing between a working Humvee and a crater, and it's not the parachutes. The rigging process takes a team of 4 to 6 Army riggers. MOS 92R parachute rigger, approximately 4 to 8 hours per vehicle. Every step follows a checklist. Every connection gets safety wired. A joint airdrop inspector signs off on the entire assembly before it goes anywhere near the aircraft. Here's what they do. First, the Humvee you see being strapped down gets prepped. Mirrors removed, antennas secured, windshields folded flat. Drops the height from nearly 6 feet to about 4.5. Battery disconnected. Fuel partially drained to cut weight and reduce fire risk. Tires are slightly deflated for impact absorption. Every loose item inside the vehicle, gone. If you left a coffee mug on the dash, congratulations. It's now a projectile. Then the vehicle goes onto the platform. Chains and CGU-1B tie-down devices lock the Humvee's frame to the platform's tie-down rings. Cargo straps reinforce the connection. The vehicle cannot shift, not an inch, because if it shifts on exit, the load goes asymmetric. The parachutes pull unevenly, and you've got a 10,000-pound pendulum swinging under silk at 1,000 feet. Now comes the part that makes the whole thing work: the extraction force transfer straps. These connect the extraction parachute harness directly to the platform. When the chute deploys, the force doesn't pull on the vehicle, it pulls on the platform, and the platform pulls the vehicle. The entire assembly moves as one unit. On top of it all, riggers attach the main cargo parachutes, packed in deployment bags, connected by risers to the platform. For a combat-loaded Humvee at roughly 10,000 to 12,000 pounds total, that means a cluster of 3 to 5 G11 parachutes. Each G11 is 100 feet in diameter. Laid flat, one of these chutes would cover a basketball court. Each one weighs about 250 pounds packed, and they need 3 to 5 of them just for one Humvee. When the rigging is done, the inspector walks the entire assembly one final time. Every chain, every strap, every safety wire. One misstep, one strap misrouted, one chain not tensioned correctly, and a 220,000 vehicle and months of preparation become a hole in the ground. And that's just one Humvee. A full heavy drop mission means doing this 3 times per aircraft, and there might be 15 aircraft on the mission. 45 platforms, 45 sets of parachutes, every single one rigged by hand, inspected by hand, and signed off individually. But here's what the riggers can't control. Once the ramp opens and the extraction chute catches air, the next 8 seconds belong to physics. No human hand touches the load again until it's on the ground. The riggers know this. The Army considers airdrop rigging one of its most detail-oriented jobs for a reason. The rig platforms get towed across the tarmac to the waiting C-17s. Loadmasters guide each one up the ramp and onto the rail system, locking the platforms into position one behind the other. First in is last out. The vehicle closest to the cockpit drops last. Spacing between the loads is measured and verified because when the first platform launches off the ramp, the second one is already being pulled forward. There's no room for overlap and no room for error. Once all 3 loads are locked and the loadmasters have verified every rail connection, the ramp closes and the aircraft taxis into a formation that's been planned down to the second. Some of these C-17s are carrying Humvees. Others are packed with paratroopers, 102 soldiers per aircraft lined up in 2 sticks along the cargo bay. The paratroopers fly in front. The heavy drop aircraft stack behind them. The sequence matters. Soldiers hit the ground first. Vehicles follow. Get it backwards and you're dropping 10,000-pound platforms onto your own people. Now, you might be wondering, why not just land the plane and drive the vehicles off? The C-17 can land on a 35-foot dirt strip. It can even back up on the ground using its thrust reversers, which almost no other aircraft its size can do. But here's the problem. You can't land on a runway that doesn't exist yet. And in the first hours of a military operation, a real one, not an exercise, there is for sure no secured runway. The 82nd Airborne Division, based at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, maintains a division-ready brigade on alert at all times. Their mission? Deploy anywhere on Earth within 18 hours of notification. Not 18 hours to start packing, 18 hours to boots on the ground. Weapons ready, vehicles rolling. This isn't theoretical. On March 26, 2003, 15 C-17s dropped 1,000 paratroopers from the 173rd Airborne Brigade into northern Iraq, the largest combat airdrop since Panama 1989. Heavy equipment followed them down. Follow-on C-17s, air-landed tanks, and Bradleys on the airfield the paratroopers had seized. The drop zone is a piece of ground that belongs to someone else. No runway, no fuel depot, no friendlies. Just a stretch of flat terrain identified by satellite and assigned a set of GPS coordinates. Paratroopers hit it first, seize it, and hold it. But paratroopers on foot are light infantry. They can take ground but can't exploit it. Without vehicles, they're a perimeter waiting to shrink. And the Humvee is the only tactical vehicle light enough to fix that. At roughly 7,700 pounds for a standard M998 variant, it fits under a parachute cluster. Its replacement, the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, weighs over 22,000 pounds, nearly triple. Good luck pushing that out of a C-17. The heavy drop aircraft are minutes behind the paratroopers, holding at altitude, waiting for the call that the zone is secure enough to begin the run. If the call doesn't come, the vehicles don't drop. If the zone is hot, those 15 aircraft fly home with their cargo still locked to the rails. But today, the call comes. The DZ is clear. The heavy drop aircraft peel off from the holding pattern and line up for their approach. The aircraft approaches the drop zone on a fixed heading, altitude typically around 1,000 feet above the ground. Speed, 130 to 150 knots. The ramp is already open. The loadmasters have completed their final checks. Safety pins pulled. Extraction system armed. On the ground, a drop zone safety officer confirms the zone is clear. Wind readers measure surface conditions. Panels mark the target. In the cockpit, the pilots are locked onto one number, the computed air release point, the CARP. This is the exact GPS coordinate in the sky where the load must leave the aircraft for gravity, wind, and drag to carry it where you want it to land. The onboard computer builds the CARP in real time. It starts with the aircraft's ground speed and altitude, then layers in wind data at multiple altitudes. Because the wind at 1,000 feet might be blowing north while the wind at 500 feet is pushing east. It factors in the aerodynamic drag profile of the specific load configuration. A Humvee on a Type 5 platform under 5 G11 canopies falls differently than the same Humvee under 3. It accounts for the time delay between the green light and the moment the platform actually clears the ramp, roughly 2 to 4 seconds of continued forward travel at 150 knots. That delay alone moves the release point hundreds of feet. The CARP updates continuously as conditions change. A wind shift in the last 30 seconds before the drop can move the release point by a quarter mile. It's like throwing a football from a moving truck at highway speed and trying to hit a trash can 3 blocks away. Except the football weighs 10,000 pounds, the wind keeps changing, and there's no second throw. Get it wrong by 2 seconds at 150 knots, and the Humvee lands hundreds of yards off the target, potentially onto your own people's positions. Miss the drop zone entirely, and you've just gift-wrapped a Humvee for the enemy, while your own paratroopers watch from the ground with nothing to drive. Everything is ready. The loadmaster confirms armed. The pilot confirms on course. The DZ confirms clear. The light turns green. T-0. The loadmaster initiates the extraction. A small drogue parachute you see here deploys into the airstream behind the aircraft, catches air, and yanks out the extraction parachute. A 22-foot ring slot chute that inflates instantly and generates thousands of pounds of drag force. Watch what happens next. That force rips through the extraction straps, overcomes the rail restraints and the entire platform, Humvee and all, slides down the cargo floor rails and off the ramp. 2 seconds, the platform clears the ramp. 4 seconds, the load is airborne. The pilots feel it. When 10,000 pounds exits the rear of the aircraft in under 4 seconds, the center of gravity lurches forward. The nose dips. The C-17's fly-by-wire system compensates automatically, but the crew feels the aircraft shift under them, and they're dropping 3 Humvees in sequence. They feel it 3 times. Here's where it gets interesting. The platform clears the ramp and drops into the slipstream. Static lines snap tight, pulling the deployment bags. Imagine throwing a bed sheet over a falling refrigerator. Now multiply that by 5, and each sheet is the size of a basketball court. Look at the canopies opening above the vehicle. 3, 4, 5 massive G11s, 100 feet across, inflating in sequence above 10,000 pounds of falling military hardware. Under the full canopy, the Humvee descends at roughly 23 to 28 feet per second. That's about 17 miles per hour straight down. From ramp to dirt, maybe 45 seconds. And remember, the C-17 can carry 3 Humvees rigged for sequential drop. The first one exits, shoots bloom, and before it even hits the ground, the loadmaster is already releasing the second. Then the third. 3 Humvees, 3 sets of parachutes, all from the same aircraft, on the same pass over the drop zone. Now picture 15 C-17s flying in formation, each one carrying 3 vehicles. That's 45 Humvees falling out of the sky in minutes. That's not a delivery, that's an invasion. And remember, every one of those Humvees still has to survive the landing. Let's go back to the drop zone, because this is the part that answers the question everyone actually wants answered. Does the Humvee survive? Remember that platform, the one thing standing between the Humvee and a crater? Here's what it actually is. The Type 5 modular airdrop platform is made of honeycomb aluminum, thin aluminum sheets formed into hexagonal cells, bonded between flat face sheets. Think of it like bubble wrap, but made of metal, and engineered to crush in a specific way. Look at it as it hits. Those honeycomb cells start collapsing. 6 inches, a foot, maybe more. The cells crush progressively, converting kinetic energy into deformation. No springs, no hydraulics, just aluminum folding in on itself at a rate calibrated to absorb the specific energy of this specific load at this specific descent rate. The Humvee rides on top of that crush. The straps and chains hold it to the platform through the entire impact sequence. The slightly deflated tires compress, the suspension bottoms out and rebounds, and then silence. For a moment, the Humvee just sits there on a destroyed platform in the middle of a field, canopies of nylon settling around it like a deflating circus tent. Then the recovery teams move. They're already positioned on the drop zone, watching the descent from the moment the chutes open. First priority, cut away the parachute risers. In any kind of wind, those 100-foot canopies can act like sails. They'll drag a 10,000-pound vehicle across the ground like a toy. Teams rush in with knives and cut the risers before the wind catches. Then the rigging comes off. Chains unhooked, straps cut, tie-down devices removed. The riggers spent 8 hours putting this together. The recovery crew takes it apart in minutes. Battery reconnected, fuel system checked, key turned. Military officials report that upwards of 85% of properly rigged vehicles drive away under their own power within minutes of landing. Imagine picking your car up from a mechanic who dropped it from 1,000 feet, and it starts on the first try. The rigger's checklist, the inspector's sign-off, the 8 hours of preparation, that's what makes the difference between a Humvee that starts and a Humvee-shaped crater. And those G11 parachutes? At $5,000 to $10,000 each, they're too valuable to leave in a field. Recovery teams gather every canopy, fold them, and pack them for return to the rigger units. The parachutes get reused. The honeycomb platform gets left behind. One is worth thousands. The other did its job by being destroyed. Because the other outcome, the one nobody wants to talk about, is what happens when the parachutes don't open, when the cluster fails, or a rigging error prevents deployment, or a static line snags and the deployment bags never pull free. The military calls it burning in. The vehicle, still strapped to its platform, hits the ground at full descent speed with no deceleration. There's no vehicle left to recover. Just aluminum and steel compressed into a crater several feet deep. It's rare. The checklist-driven rigging process, the inspector sign-offs, the redundancy built into every cluster. All of it exists to prevent exactly this. But it happens. And every rigger who ties a knot on an airdrop platform knows that their hands are the last line between a successful delivery and a total loss. Let that land for a second. And if you want to know more about the C-17, you should watch this video. Bye for now.